Our movie today is an Australian sci-fi called Infinity. The opening scene shows several soldiers being meticulously interrogated, bordering torture. They are asked about their names, families, location, and other basic questions, in order to assess their mental state. The soldiers are exhausted by the exercise, and seem to be in a hazy state. Most of them are hallucinating, then become irritated and angry after hours of interrogation. Elsewhere in a ghetto, we are introduced to our protagonist, Whit Carmichael, who is a new member of West Coast SAR. He spends his morning on the balcony, contemplating the fear of slipstreaming. He is also excited about his mission, because he has been training for years. His wife, Lisa Carmichael, joins him and lifts his spirits. She knows he is taking on this dangerous mission to change their lives and save them from poverty. She tells him to focus on getting back to her and to stay safe. Although Lisa seems strong and supportive, she breaks down in tears and begs him not to go. Before leaving, Lisa tells Whit to do whatever it takes to return safely. She gives him a photo of them as a memento. At West Coast HQ, Whit is feeling awkward on his first day. His captain, Sefton, warmly welcomes him, while the men on the team tease him a bit. The captain orders most of the men to leave for their mission. He then talks to David, a quiet private soldier. The captain has intricate logs about everyone's activity and is worried about David illegally slipstreaming for 2 minutes. Not only is this dangerous, but it could get him fired. It is clear that the captain is very close to his team, one might say too friendly. David does not want to share in front of Whit, so the captain decides not to discipline him before hearing the full story. Suddenly, an alarm goes off, and an emergency is declared at a mining station called Infinity. The commanders give an uplifting speech to a squad of soldiers, telling them that they're going in blind, but they are certain they can handle any situation. The SAR commander sends them to the mining station via slipstream. 30 seconds later, the team returns, bloody and full of rage. They have lost themselves to their instinct. They go berserk and attack their friends. They even set off a grenade, claiming many lives. Due to this event, the West Coast HQ is forced to activate an all-out lockdown to contain the crisis. Whit, David, and the captain watch in horror as their friends turn into feral beasts and attack them. Hiding in the locker room, Captain Sefton immediately orders David to modify their Apex so they can illegally teleport to Infinity using his black box. Turns out, David has stolen equipment to slipstream whenever he wanted. They discover that Infinity is off the grid, and there isn't any info about it. The situation escalates, so the HQ goes into Delta lockdown, meaning everyone will get gassed and put in stasis, which is worse than losing their lives outright. David modifies the APES, but fails to program the captains. Left with no alternative, Whit and David grimly abandon their captain to perish and slipstream out of there. Minutes later, East Coast SAR goes into full red alert. They brief a new team about the events at the Infinity mining station, claiming there is a powerful energy compound there that has infected all the workers. It is airborne, and if returned to Earth, it will lead to an outbreak, and humanity will become extinct within hours. The commander says that the SAR team was previously charged with rescuing a mad survivor, Montali, who used to work there, but something awful happened, forcing the SAR team to return with a changed demeanor and act violently without remorse. Furthermore, they are informed that Montali has programmed a payload from the Infinity station to teleport to Earth soon, which could infect and destroy the planet. He has also disabled his Apex device in order to remain on the premises. The new team, consisting of Charlie, Chester, Morgan, Rex, Claire, Philippa, Harris, and Seed as the captain, is ordered to halt the payload and recover the only survivor left, Whit. These are the same people we have seen at the start of the movie. Whit has impressed everyone with his survival skills, but he is out of rations and on the verge of collapse because 1 minute on Earth equals 24 hours on Infinity. He's been out there for a week. This is owing to Infinity's proximity to several black holes, which means the SAR crew will undergo extreme temporal dilation. The boss promises the team a lot of money if they succeed, and praises them for being the best rescue squad before sending them out. Once there, the team finds the place frozen and full of bodies. The temperature is minus 70 degrees Celsius, and the main power is offline. Captain Seat divides the team into 3 groups. Jackler and Boxon are ordered to immediately start looking for Whit, while Menzies, Greenwich, and Kent are on payload duty, and the rest go with the captain to activate the generator. Kent tells them to use the service tunnels to move around faster, and warns them to finish quickly, or else they'll all freeze. In practically every room, they all discover the bodies of workers who have met their ends on the frozen planet. Seat, who is in the control room, receives multiple messages from the computer, questioning their identities as well as their goal, as Chester switches on the generator. The heater turns on by itself when a metal door abruptly opens, after the captain describes their goals, forcing the previously frozen ice and blood to rapidly dissolve. They eventually catch up with Whit when, shockingly, he emerges from behind the metal door. Whit then tells them that a strange outbreak occurred when he first arrived at the station a week ago. He is aware that the mining personnel were scratched as though it had been burned by acid, in a time they came into contact with each other, whether it was skin to skin or blood. The origin of the incident is still unclear. He also witnessed them all fighting and slaying one another. He goes on to say that he ultimately reached the furnace chamber after finding a way to conceal himself within a ducting vent. He made the decision to blow up some exterior vents after being imprisoned for a while, finishing everyone within the station. Once he permanently takes the payload offline, the SAR team offers to take him home. Whit assists them at last, since he has worked out how the station works, while being irritated by their want to get home as quickly as possible. Harris, Morgan, and Claire are instructed to proceed to the station's lower level and prepare for manual control if necessary. Chester unexpectedly approaches Whit while he is working on the payload and inquires as to whether or not he has been infected. Hence, a furious Whit flashes him his eyes to assure him that he is okay and uninfected. Whit manages to disable the payload, but Montali unexpectedly appears and assaults Seat. Except for Harris, everyone in the room is showered with Montali's blood when Rex manages to shoot him in the head. Thankfully, Whit maintains his composure despite being doused with Montali's blood, while the others erupt in furious wrath. Whit instantly leaves the room after telling Harris to hide from the other people, but he stumbles while jumping across the hallway. He hears someone shouting his name repeatedly. To his surprise, discovers that he is still alive and has awoken. Charlie, it turns out, continues to hunt for him, under the impression that Whit has set them up. Whit is forced to continue running until he comes to the end of the hallway. Fortunately, Morgan emerges out of nowhere and promptly murders Charlie after mistaking him for Whit. Whit then looks throughout the station for the last of the SAR team and any information he may find regarding the illness. He eventually locates a lab where he finds a medical record that states the planet is totally made of alien biological material that, when thawed, generates a substance known as primordial ooze. His awareness is now slowly disappearing. Any biological tissue may become infected, mimicked, and finally controlled by it. He also learns from the additional investigation of his contaminated blood that the ooze is hostile, predatory in nature, and motivated by self-preservation. After some time, Whit is unexpectedly attacked from behind by Harris, who has been hiding in a locker and is forced to put on his pistol. Whit narrates everything that occurred earlier, beginning with all of the sick individuals, Morgan eliminating Charlie, and the primordial ooze. They come to the conclusion that the only option for stopping the alien substance is to return to Earth and permanently shut down the Infinity Station, after finding that it has skills beyond those of humans. Their only hope now that Seat is gone is Chester, who can dial in an early slipstreaming. The two are immediately accosted by an infected Rex, who rapidly renders Harris helpless, while threatening to murder him when they view the station design. Rex uses Whit's comments to remind himself of Harris and his buddies, in an effort to suppress the temptation to go on a murderous spree. He briefly regains consciousness before deciding to avoid going insane once more. Unfortunately, Harris is splattered with his blood, which makes him angry as well. Whit consequently decides to put a stop to him before he can cause any more problems. Whit eventually locates Chester in the control room, where he uses a radio broadcast to convey a message to his family, even if it takes generations for it to reach Earth. Chester regains mental stability. Whit then requests that he go to the medical facility to locate Claire, in the hopes that she would do whatever is necessary to save their lives before the illness becomes worse. Whit resolves to travel alone to locate Claire, since he needs to follow his commitment to his wife. Chester opposes him, and the two of them behave abnormally as they argue and chat nonstop. While seeing her body begin to morph, Claire is receiving a blood transfusion at the medical facility. Shortly after, Morgan, her boyfriend, approaches her, since he made a vow to look after Claire and their kid. It turns out that Claire is expecting, but since she has an infection, she must regretfully get rid of the child. As a result, Morgan is quite disappointed with her, and a battle ensues between the two. At the same moment, Whit and Chester break into the med bay and discover Morgan deceased, while Claire is saying her farewell words. Claire informs him that there is no other way to heal the sickness before she succumbs to it. Chester places a pistol toward Whit's head in deference to Claire's choice, but he quickly fights back. They get into a battle, and Whit finally wins by breaking Chester's neck. Whit is once again the last remaining person on the station. Whit tapes a message to the ooze, which plays on a loop over the loudspeakers, convinced that the ooze can hear what he says. He condemns it for not cooperating with people, and instead using solely the aggressive inclinations of humanity. In addition, he informs the ooze that it has failed, before finally taking his. The goo is then seen encroaching on the corpses. Everyone in Infinity wakes a little while later, uninjured and no longer insane, as though brought back to life by something. They accede to their captain's request to keep their narrative brief, despite the fact that they are visibly upset by what has transpired. Whit notices many ooze-like humanoid creatures silently watching them go, as they start to teleport back to Earth. In addition, one of them is holding Whit's wife's portrait, which he had with him when he left on his mission. Back on Earth, all of them are scanned and checked, and only the soldiers cleared can go home. Everyone gets cleared except Whit, whose vitals have changed. Suddenly, he gets cleared of biological contaminants. They are all taken home, and will get debriefed later. In the end, Whit returns home to his wife and collapses as he hugs her. She says they told her that Whit had perished in space. The movie ends with Whit crying, and leaving us to wonder if it's the real him who has come back to Earth.